All right, it's preparing to live stream the meeting.
Says live on my end.
All right. Welcome once again to another edition, episode 10.5 of Banter. I'm old.
And I'm bald.
You are, and I'm glad that you're wearing a hat. You're kind of, sometimes you get that glare going off there.
You know, there's a specific reason I decided to wear a hat. And when I put it on, I didn't tell you what that reason is, but you'll see. It'll come in handy later.
Oh, did you get a tattoo? You get a head tattoo?
Funny, I have been watching a lot of Ink Master lately. I watched 2 full seasons of Ink Master this past week. Kind of
I don't think
unbelievable.
I've ever seen Ink Master. I used to watch.
Good.
I used to watch some tattoo stuff. I have one tattoo, my running buddy on my shoulder.
But I almost forgot.
Yeah.
You don't really seem like a tattoo guy.
Always have a running buddy. Got that right after I graduated college. Yeah. So never alone.
Look at that. That's an excuse. You were like, if I get a tattoo right here, I have an excuse to be like, yeah, I have a tattoo, and just flex on everyone.
Yeah. The guns are gone. I'm getting old, and so they just, when you get to a certain age, the muscle mass just goes down. It's a lot harder.
I thought it was cumulative.
Yeah, something like that. So today
we're back. We're back after a big break.
It's been 2 weeks. We had to take a holiday break. We had to give everyone a break from our madness. Want to thank everybody for being avid viewers of the show. We decided for this particular episode we were going to go live, and this one could go long because it's about Star Wars. So
if you haven't figured it out already,
lots of stuff. I got Grogu in the background here. My daughter's stole it from my daughter. My brother-in-law got that for her. He said does she have he called it a Baby Yoda. That was before we knew his name was Grogu. He said, does Caitlin have that? And we said, no. And I didn't expect this gigantic pillow thing, but that's still cool.
It's very soft. I felt it while I was dog sitting.
Yeah, it is very soft. It's kind of velvety.
What is that, velvet?
Oh, wow. Obscure lines. Love it. So we're going to have a few guests that are going to join us a little while later. But if you're new to the show, now's our time for the rant. Your turn, good buddy. Mr. Bald. What do you got this week?
In this moment, I'm going to go into my rant in a second, but I just realized that we need to start having an advice segment where people write in to the show and then we give them advice. So if you want to write a letter into the show, I don't know where you're going to send it, but if you need advice, you might as well write into us and we'll see if we bring it up ever.
That is so perfect because we are experts at exactly
nothing.
Nothing at all. That's what would make that show great is we could just give our advice and really with no expertise whatsoever. It would be like if you were logging onto social media, basically, right? Kind of.
Only better because since there's not so many of us, then you're getting we're uninfluenced by the outside world.
More direct. So what do you got?
All right. Well, this rant is seasonally relevant. So Christmas season just happened, right? And we all know the people who go very hard with their Christmas lights, and we know there's people who don't put up any Christmas lights. Now, in my opinion, there's a tasteful balance, you got your roof lined, you got some in your bushes, maybe you got a big snowflake on the side of your house, lights like that. Great stuff. Colored lights, white lights, I prefer the white ones, or silver lights or something. They look like snow. That's just me. If you want to do colored. But the rant here is for the people who fill their yard with like a million things and you're just like, at night you're like, wow, that's a lot of effort. That's really great. I don't know if it's just like maybe it's my upbringing or something, but my thoughts are always like that looks expensive. Think about the electric bill and like each little like plastic reindeer's got to be like $8 probably. So times 8, that's 64 just in reindeer. And then you got like 100 different like little lawn trinkets. The other thing is during the day, oh, and we have our first guest tuning in. I'm going to finish this rant. But during the day, all that Christmas stuff looks horrible in someone's front yard. It looks like you left a bunch of trash in the yard. And I'm not a fan, I got to be honest. That might be controversial to some people who really like Christmas lights. But if you have so many Christmas things in your yard that it looks like a dumpster tipped over in your front yard during the day, maybe tune it down a little bit.
Okay. Moving on. So we had planned to, again, this is what happens when you go live. We had planned to set up a waiting room. Our moderator slipped up. They must be on vacation still. Right? Our producer?
I think there were budget cuts in the new year for production or something.
Yeah, COVID strikes again, man. Budget cuts. So, guys, we'd like to welcome you. These are our two fine young gentlemen that have decided to jump on our call today, jump on the show about Star Wars and everything Star Wars. I know you guys are a couple of experts, right?
Absolutely. Not even close, really.
So, Zach, explain how many Star Wars movies you've seen start to finish.
The one there's one called The Last Jedi, right? Like that's a Star Wars movie.
That pretty much answers that question.
That's the one I've seen from the beginning to the end. So it's the only one.
Do you know what this is called?
Yeah, it's a lightsaber. Come on. I get pop culture.
I'm glad you said lightsaber and not lifesaver, because I've heard that. I've heard people say that before.
Also good though.
Very good, yeah.
They're both good things.
They are. They both can save lives.
Let me correct myself. They're both good things in the right hands.
Who's good and bad though?
Or the left hand, you know. Had to throw it out. Had to throw it out.
Ooh.
I know. All right. So introduce yourselves, gentlemen. Who are you? Why do we have you on our show?
Well, my name's Brock, and the reason I'm on this show is because Jack called me about an hour ago and asked if I would join, and I asked if Zach could join as well.
Yeah, and I'm Zach. I don't really know anything about Star Wars, so I'm here to learn and maybe ask a few questions. So
I like that. That's a very adult response on our show. We don't get many of those. It's a very adult thing to learn and ask a few questions along the way. To be fair, I planted the seed in Brock's head. I said on our run yesterday, it's like, what do you know about Star Wars? And your response was?
I mean, I grew up watching the first 6. I don't know a lot about the more recent movies, and I always watched them on whenever the babysitter came over, or when we were on long car rides and my sister didn't get to pick the movie.
Nice. And I'm not going to ask Zach that question. What got interested in Star Wars? But we're going to kick it off. We have a little script, but we're going to kind of just go at it. What's your favorite of all the Star Wars movies, of all the series? You can go with the series, you can go with the movie, you can go with one of the cartoons or the animated series.
Or the Christmas specials. Don't forget the Christmas
specials. Or the Family Guy specials.
I was going to bring that up. I have seen all the Family Guy Star Wars specials.
Oh, then you're caught up.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah.
In a way. What's your favorite, Brock?
My favorite Star Wars movie would have to be Return of the Jedi, Episode 6. And within the new series, my favorite one would be the Solo movie.
He's. Did we just become best friends? Did we just?
Do you want to go do karate in the garage?
You want to do karate in the garage? I watched Cobra Kai today, so that's perfect.
All right. Well, that's upsetting that you said that because now I'm just going to be on an island here.
I don't even have to talk. He already said it. He said
Part of my thing is to trash Solo tonight at some point, so we're going to get
leave.
there.
It's over. Gone.
Also, I just want to point out, Zach, as a teacher, that was like the most hilarious thing you just did to Brock. Where you looked at him, you're like, "What's your favorite?" The man asked you a question. Go ahead.
I'm glad I'm already kind of settling into the role. I think that's a good sign for the future.
Yeah, seriously.
And
That
I'm
was
wearing a cardigan,
uncanny.
so it's really off without a hitch.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up. I was going to let your fashion kind of speak for itself, but hey, it's out there.
Yeah, he's got the dude vibe going, the Big Lebowski thing.
It's another movie I haven't seen. I
Have
don't.
you seen it? Have you seen it, Bob?
Nope. However, it's on my list.
I was on a high, brought me back down.
Thank God.
Even out. All right, Mr. Bald, you gotta tell me what it is. I already know what it is, but let's tell those at home.
All right, look. You're going to say what you think you know it is, but you've mischaracterized what I've said. What it really is, okay? I pick movies in terms of my enjoyability and cinematic quality. So I have a winner in each category. In terms of, Zach, don't make that face. In cinematic quality, it's going to be Empire Strikes Back. It's a generation-changing movie. People fell in love with the original Star Wars, but then to take that and to make a movie that was even better 3 years later, that's incredible. The most enjoyable for me is Revenge of the Sith. 2005, I would have been 9 years old when that came out. It hit me right in the hot streak. The action's incredible. It's a culmination of so many things. I've always been an Obi-Wan fan, and obviously that guy gets a lot of glory in that movie. So what is there not to like? And I've probably seen that movie, I don't know, it's got to be almost 15 to 20 times at least, but a lot. So
I can't argue too much. I was deathly afraid that you were going to say Rogue One, and then I was just going to turn this whole thing off.
Which, just as I predicted, another mischaracterization of what I've said in the past.
Do you feel threatened? Do you feel not heard?
Yeah, I feel like my feelings are being validated from past conversations. Do you even listen
Okay.
to me?
Not usually. I'm just trying to think about what I'm going to say next. Isn't that how it's supposed to work? Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Classic white male privilege.
Wow, you went down that road.
I went there.
We could go really far. That's a whole nother episode we might have to have. So I can't disagree with you in regards to Revenge of the Sith. I think that's a fantastic movie. And Empire I like, but I'm still on the Return of the Jedi is still my favorite. I mean, that's when Luke, kind of the iconic character, comes to fruition. You start to see everything happen. Yoda dies, just there's so many things that kind of happen in that tie everything together. And again, for me, I was about the age that you were in Return of the Sith is about the age that I was in Return of the Jedi. I was a little bit younger yet because those movies came out so a while back. So in terms of one of the first ones that I saw, that was one of the first movies that I actually saw and remember seeing of the Star Wars series, not the original. I didn't see it in order either. I saw that one first and then kind of saw the pieces all thrown in there. So that's
well, let's talk Return of the Jedi for a second. And Brock, I want to start with your thoughts. What are your thoughts on Ewoks?
Yeah, I think they're awesome. They're just a kind of unexpected character. I feel like when they go to the planet and they're kind of funny. I don't know. That's the one thing that I like about a few of the more recent Star Wars, and this one is like there's a little bit of a funny aspect. I know that's not the whole concept of Star Wars to be funny, but I think the Ewoks had a very humor to it, and Also, when they beat the crap out of clones with like rocks and sticks and stuff, pretty awesome, I must say. So, and they're on the speeders. Yeah.
You know,
I-
well said.
what?
Well said.
Yeah. I mean, I
Man
like,
of simple taste.
I agree. Like I argued with Bald Hair they're my favorite like side characters of the series. You know, I never liked what are the I think like the Gongans or whatever. I never liked them and that whole.
You mean the Gungans?
Yeah, the Gungans. See, I can't even get it because they were not memorable to, well, they were memorable, but in a bad way. But the
Fair.
Ewoks were just like a great, and it was at the end of that first series that came out, and they were probably the most helpful. They're coolest, you know. I like them as well. They're my
Well,
favorite.
yeah, sure. They were the most helpful until they tried to like roast Luke and Han on a spit and eat them.
It was a misunderstanding.
Super helpful misunderstanding at that.
Hey, they had a big party at the end to celebrate.
So the reason I bring up the Ewoks first thing is a little fun fact. Originally, the Ewoks were supposed to be Wookiees, and they were going to land on that planet, and it was going to be a bunch of Wookiees there, and this warrior tribe was going to help defeat the Empire in a more realistic way. But then obviously, like, that's why Ewoks are always looked at as such like a merchandising grab, because like they changed it to sell toys to kids because they're like, oh, you probably sell these cute little teddy bears more than we could sell like big scary Wookiees like killing clones and ripping their arms out. So originally Endor was supposed to be the home world of the Wookiees, and they were supposed to help the rebels defeat the Empire in episode 6.
I feel like that's slightly irrelevant though, just because they didn't do that, and the general population that watches Star Wars does not know that. So it doesn't hold anything. There's
You
still
mean in terms of like the reputation of Ewoks?
this isn't about I don't know. You acted like there's some. I don't know why you disliked them. You haven't really given the explanation. You just gave this whole random backstory that nobody really knows.
Well, I think that the alternative would have been more exciting, is the point. And maybe you're right. The general population doesn't know that. I know you're right on that. However, still, like, in a way, they like take the tone of the movie into like more of an, and I'm going to say the word unrealistic, and I know Zach's going to be like, it's Star Wars, dude, it's unrealistic. But look, it's like, if there's an indigenous race that's going to like help defeat the Empire, it's not going to be the little teddy bears.
So big teddy bears can do it. I guess.
Okay, back up. Teddy bears. Okay, let's. But they're still a group of warriors. You're taking their size and saying that they can't accomplish their size. That I take offense to that, and so do the Ewoks. All right. I'm going to share. Okay, I'm going to share a little bit of this with you then. So I'm a big reader. I read a lot of like Malcolm Gladwell stuff and all that. And one of the books that he had was called David and Goliath, and it tells the backstory of David and Goliath, how Goliath was this gigantic warrior, and in those times, being the big warrior meant you wore all this huge armor, you would carry this big heavy sword, and you were supposed to do hand-to-hand combat face to face. And so when David came out, everybody laughed at him and thought he was ridiculous. But David was a slinger, right? And they could sling those rocks as fast as a bullet. And everybody thought that he was silly and he wasn't going to be able to defeat Goliath, but he slung that thing as fast as a bullet and killed him with one strike. Ewoks. What did they do?
Ewoks.
They threw rocks. So don't tell me that the little Ewoks weren't effective.
As well as another prime example within Star Wars is Master Yoda.
Yoda.
Right, but he was also force
Grogu.
assisted the entire time. That's why
Grogu.
I believe, if I'm remembering this correctly, he was like a Form 4 lightsaber combat user, which is a force assisted form of lightsaber combat, which is what made him viable in the first place. So,
But he's still small.
Hey,
yeah, I know, but the Ewoks weren't force sensitive.
Grogu.
Again, the Force. It's the same argument. And I like Return of the Jedi, but I will poke holes in it because I think it's funny to watch you get so defensive. So I'm going to keep doing it. So here's another thing in Return of the Jedi that makes no sense. Either it makes no sense or you have to accept that the Emperor is kind of an idiot. Because at the end, towards the end of the movie, when like the climax is going on, the Emperor says, "Oh, I'm the one who leaked the information to the rebels about where the shield generator was and this and that." If he leaked the information, why did he give them the actual location of the shield generator? Like, he told them where the actual shield generator is, and that's why they lost. If he was going to come with a fake location, why couldn't he pick a real fake location?
So wasn't that the idea, though, is, and I'm going to push your buttons on this one, wasn't that the idea of the long game a little bit? Like he had knew what it was going to eventually lead to, right? Which you get to see in the last, wait to see how this goes. In the last film that is definitely your favorite. It all led to kind of that, him being on the planet and creating all the planet destroyers and all that. It all was built to that. So do you think he could have known that, and then that was all a setup to get to that point?
You're telling me his plan was for Darth Vader to kill him?
Yeah.
No.
He knew he wasn't going to die. I mean, that comes from that comes from episodes 1, 2, and 3, where he's talking about the Force, bringing people back to life, being able to be, essentially immortal, and talking about all those things throughout that series. So it all kind of ties together, where he's talking about it in the beginning, and then he goes through and he plans all this whole thing out. We've seen him be maniacal and planning in all of the movies to begin with. So what's the argument against the fact that he could have planned that whole thing out to begin with?
Well, if that was the case, then why wouldn't he just build all those Star Destroyers then? Why would he have to die in order to
do it right away? He needed time. It takes time. Those things. It's not like you just go like this. Oh, I'm going to build Star Destroyers.
So by him getting himself killed, got him more time instead of just him building the Star Destroyers over those 30 years. And like maybe if he dies, but then he can do the same thing either way. So it's
all part of the plot.
And like for 2.4 million Death Star employees to die.
See, that's all part of the plot, though.
Oh my God.
So then that pushes Luke to end up going to the temple. And then that pushes Kylo Ren and Rey to meet, and that pushes Rey to learn how to be a Jedi and trained by Luke. And then eventually she comes, I mean, it was all built so he didn't actually have to train his own lineage. And then she shows up at the perfect timing that he wanted, and then he tries to essentially warp her mind and switch her to get her to switch sides, right? So you can see how the succession of things, like he starts with Anakin, pushes to Luke, and then Luke kills his own father, and then it kind of goes down this whole line of things, and then it gets to Rey at the end facing off against him, and he thinks he's going to be able to turn her because you set up this whole course of events, and then that isn't able to actually happen.
That's a lot of work on the fan theory side of things, and I think you're giving way too much credit to anyone who participated in this sequel trilogy.
I'm giving just the right amount of credit.
Well, how about this? Zach, let's talk about the movie that you've seen.
Okay.
What are your impressions, takeaways, favorite and least favorite parts?
Oh God. So I watched it like 2.5 years ago, probably. So details are a little fuzzy. As an outsider of the Star Wars community, just kind of stepping in and watching it, I thought it was an exciting movie to watch. There was a lot of action going on, and then when Luke does the Force ghost thing, That was pretty sick, I thought. And then the like zoom in on his feet and you don't see the sand move. Like I distinctly remember that scene. So it stood out to me. Again, I'm pretty fuzzy on the plot points and like what exactly was going on. And the person I was watching it was like trying to explain it to me, but that just ruins the movie if you're trying to like figure out other things. But like takeaway there is I really enjoyed it, but I don't know how you feel about it or how Brock feels about it or what the general consensus from like the inside the Star Wars community is. From what you and Coach Moss have from what you and Old have said, it seems like you're not a huge fan of it, probably for reasons I won't fully understand, but I would love to hear them.
Yeah, no one understands me. That's the moral of the story.
That's the issue here, yeah.
Well, I think that it's important that we get your perspective on it out before you're influenced that much by specific thoughts on that film.
Fair enough. I enjoyed watching it. I would watch it again and probably enjoy it just as much.
Yeah, we've decided that we're gonna start watching them on Anthony's Disney Plus soon. So.
Oh, smart.
That is very smart, and that's probably the best part about all this right now. Is now you can watch all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Disney, that's fantastic. You have a Disney Plus, man. That's awesome. I watched The Force Awakens today. Well, 2 days combined because I've got my daughter in school, and so at lunchtime we sit and watch it together. She loves it.
At a certain age, it's hard to stay awake for more than an hour at a time. So like you have to split it up into
Of course.
multiple evenings.
And on both sides of things, right? So as you get too old, you have to watch it in spurts because you'll fall asleep. And if you're too young, you'll fall asleep. Yeah, because you get bored or whatever. So yeah, so we both, it's perfect. So I can watch it with her for like an hour, and then we both kind of get into our moments where we're gonna fall asleep. And then, yeah, it makes sense.
Nice.
My daughter and I, so my mom, first of all, every year now has been getting me all kinds of these Star Wars things. So this mug I figured it, like on like talk shows where they have their mug that's full of water or whatever the heck, I figured I had to have my mug. So this is one that says, never tell me the odds. It's a Han Solo thing. And then it's got a Millennium Falcon on the inside, like that comes out of it. It's kind of cool. And then last year she got us lightsabers, and we battle. My daughter and I battle lightsabers. And anybody has seen this before. This year, was that last year when we did on? Oh, it was Halloween this year with like battle in the hallway.
2 months ago.
And I beat Brock.
No, I won.
Oh, I beat Jack.
Nah.
I beat Mr. Bald. Yeah.
All right, I was dressed as Bob Ross. That doesn't necessarily count.
Rematch.
All right, fine.
Jack, I think it just means that Coach Moss and I are more into Star Wars than you.
We're Force is stronger with us.
Yeah, say what you want. I closed myself off from the Force in the battle. I gave in to hate. That's pretty much all it was.
Your emotions take control of you.
Yeah.
And then I got this awesome shirt from a friend that works at a running store. Mass times acceleration force.
Force.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Science.
It's a science joke.
It's a science / Star Wars joke, which makes it perfect.
So I'm curious. Do we have any live viewers? Let's break the fourth wall. Let's be candid.
We do. We have a few. So we've got.
Joey.
I'll catch you up on a few comments that we've got coming on.
Oh, there we go.
Mr. Joey Eterno says he knows both he and I like Zach and I both know that Phantom Menace is the best.
Yeah, we do.
There we go.
Talk about that. Why does Joey say that about you?
No, I honestly, wait, is he referring to you, Jack?
Zach.
Oh, yeah, I honestly have no idea. If you asked me to list all the names of the Star Wars movies, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I agree with Joey wholeheartedly.
You just agree with anything Joey says?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jack McGinnis, Forest Moon of Endor, shake my head.
Yeah, it's not a planet. I was going to make that correction to Brock, but I let you keep going. It's not a planet. It's a forest moon.
I said it too.
You know Brock's not great on the details.
Yeah, I watch them for enjoyment, not for breaking them down.
It's part of the fun.
And then he also says, Jack McGinnis says, Zach, Zach is actually a great person to ask about the new movies. Seems like the new ones were made for people who haven't seen the 6 prior. That's
Well said by my friend in the Dirty 630.
that's a good topic to get to because I know that you feel that way about the new.
So the new movies are just sort of like reopening it to a new audience, like inspiring a new generation of fans.
Kind of, I think, and they seem to do that like every few years or whatever. They did that when they went back to the prequels and then move on to the sequels. Is they've gotten away from the plot a little bit, or not really away from it, but they've kind of put that as secondary to like excitement. And so that's why they add in like J.J. Abrams, to come and help with that excitement piece. And he obviously does a really good job with that spot. And the cinematic quality, generally speaking, is pretty good. But I think that they lose it on a lot of the plot stuff. And I'm sure Bald will have his input on that too. But I mean, we definitely see it. We had a conversation about that off air.
Yeah, we spent like a half hour already talking about Star Wars before we even went live. So this show could have gone a half hour longer, however long we make it. But I will say to that point, Jack McGinnis, yes, and it actually is a little bit smart on the side of Disney. And like, yeah, Star Wars fans are the people who don't like the newest trilogy the most. But in order for like Star Wars to like exist in perpetuity, like it can't keep appealing to people who saw it in 1977. Otherwise, it'll just die. So, like, George Lucas did a good job when he created the first trilogy of making it its own coherent thing. And, like, a lot of people also didn't like the prequel trilogy when that came out. But George Lucas did a good job of making it different enough that it appealed to a different group of people. So, like, that's why Star Wars kind of, like, rolled on and why, like, my generation's even into it in the first place, because if it was basically the same style and like the same characters as the original trilogy again that was just released in the early 2000s, I don't think that like my generation would be as into it. But he took characters that already existed, and like Obi-Wan is the best example, and he just developed them really well, and that kind of gave like new life to what it was. Whereas like this trilogy is trying to be something different, but it didn't necessarily develop old characters very well. And I'm all about character development. That's big for me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I kind of agree with your assessment, generally speaking, that you kind of have to change it for the environment that you have in front of you to gain a bigger audience. And you're never going to lose those people that were into the originals. They may not necessarily like the newer ones, but they're going to continue to watch them because, especially if you include some of the characters in it from the original, they're gonna want to know, okay, what's going on with them now, or what was their backstory, or whatever. So they're going to still be involved and interested and excited about it. Now, if you can draw in that new audience that likes the flashy stuff, likes some of the drama that's going on and all that, the battles, you got to say that the battles have gotten, dramatically improved, just like the fighting styles and all that kind of stuff has changed because it was so basic back in the original movies. So that stuff like grabs everybody and is pretty exciting. But like,
well, the visuals of it for sure.
The visuals are just amazing. Yeah.
I don't think you can say, especially when you're talking about like lightsaber fights, in episodes 1, 2, and 3, the lightsaber fighting was much better than in the new trilogy. And you can chalk that up to like, sure, like they didn't want to make like Rey look like she was too good at it because she was still supposed to be new. But like Kylo Ren's fighting style is very clunky, and it doesn't seem like he's supposed to be very powerful and like very strong with the Force. But compared to the prequel trilogy, his fighting style just isn't that impressive looking. That's my opinion.
So we got a couple of other comments. Jimmy says, "I love Bald Window." So he loves your name.
Man.
Loves you.
Thanks, man. And the original Mace Windu was bald, so it doesn't really make that much sense, but thanks.
So on top, the next comment brings you back down to another level. Tommy D says Bald Windu is the worst. So,
well, guess what? I'm right back where I started, so I don't care.
You're on an even playing field now. So
I split even.
It's good. 500. It's good for baseball.
It's true.
So I wanted to kind of pop into one of the stories that I had heard, and I don't know if it was on like one of the movies that I'd watched, and it was like deleted scenes or where they were talking about the backstory behind the show. But so there was a scene that I saw that we're talking with George Lucas, and when George Lucas got started in the game out in LA, there were a couple of other very, very prominent movie people that were coming up about the same time. Steven Spielberg, who was the other one that we said? Francis Ford Coppola was another one.
M. Night Shyamalan.
I think M. Night Shyamalan might have been around the same time as well. So they were all
M. Night Shyamalan.
Schlaman, yes. Ha ha ha.
Sorry, go ahead.
They were like, they would hang out a lot, right? So they would share script ideas and they would talk about what was going on. And so it was, apparently one night they were all out having some drinks and stuff. And George Lucas started telling the storyline of Star Wars. And so if you think about it, if nobody's ever seen it before and you start explaining to them like, oh, there's these, these hairy creatures are called Wookiees. And then there's this guy named Luke Skywalker and he has this laser beam sword that he fights people with and all this kind of stuff. He started describing it and they all like would start making fun of him and they'd start like making the sounds of a Wookiee that he told them what the sound was supposed to be. And so they would mock him. And then it was funny, they were mocking him and he really struggled to get the movie to like be a thing. He was turned down by like 4 different movie studios until who was it that ultimately decided? I don't remember who it was specifically, Universal or somebody decided, okay, we'll do this movie. And now it's like grossed almost $1 billion.
Wouldn't it have been like 20th Century Fox?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was 20th Century Fox. Yeah. So now they've grossed like $1 billion and now it's kind of like, look who's laughing now kind of thing. But it was just interesting. It was an interesting story when they were telling it and they were talking about how they were just kind of making fun of him at the time when he was telling the storyline and that it would never make it. And then he struggled and then now it's like this huge series that continues on. And now they're coming out with a whole bunch of more series on Disney Plus, several new movies. Bald, do you have a list of those in front of you?
I can pull up the list off the top of my head. The ones that I can remember immediately are the Ahsoka Tano show. It's not called that. That sounds like a talk show hosted by Ahsoka Tano. There's the Book of Boba Fett. Bad Batch, which is about, I think you know more about that one.
Bad Batch one?
Yeah.
I think that's a group of, is that the one, a group of bounty hunters or whatever?
It's like it's basically like Suicide Squad, but like supposed to be better, hopefully.
Oh, well, from what I've heard, some of the other ones that are supposed to be coming out is they're supposed to do like an origin story of Yoda, or at least like hundreds of years ago, like way before everything.
Which would be awesome.
There's supposed to be one on Obi-Wan. There's supposed to be an origin of that, and I think that one was the one that is supposed to actually have. I think the Obi-Wan one's supposed to have actually Hayden Christensen is supposed to stay on and play Darth Vader.
Yes, he is.
And Ewan McGregor is coming back to play Obi-Wan.
So yeah, that'll take place 10 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. So like smack dab between episodes 3 and 4. So
it's a series. It's a limited series, I think.
Yeah, it should be like 10 episodes or something. Originally it was going to be a movie, but Solo did so poorly in theaters that they scrapped the movie and they decided to make it a TV show. So
I think it makes more sense. Like, especially now with everything going on, people are watching more movies from home, watching more series from home. People are more interested in watching a series than they are a movie right now, it seems like.
So here's the rest. So we got Rangers of the New Republic. We've got Andor, which is a movie about the guy from Rogue One, who's like one of the main protagonists. Bad Batch, that's from the Clone Wars era. Visions is about the making of Star Wars movies. There's a Lando show.
That could be good.
Nah,
could be good.
I don't even know how to say this one. The Acolyte
Yeah, there you go.
takes place 100 years before the events of Phantom Menace. So, well, the Jedi are kind of like at their height over there.
You said that's a show or a movie?
It is a show. Yeah, and then you got a droid story that's going to be, looks like an animated thing about R2D2 and 3PO. You got Star Wars Rogue Squadron, which is a film. And then there's an untitled Taika Waititi project, the guy who directed Thor Ragnarok. And that's going to be a film as well, I guess. So that's all the stuff they just announced. It's a lot.
I have a question regarding like, because the amount of projects you just said is kind of alarming. Like that's a lot, you know, like you just
A lot.
listed off probably like 15 different things. And there's already so much Star Wars like media and like TV shows. Like I know there's the Clone Wars animated thing, and then we were at Half Price Books the other day, and I saw like an entire shelf of just novels about Star Wars. So like the amount of like print, film, TV shows is kind of astonishing to me. And my question is, so like, at what point? Because there's a lot of people that are disappointed with the new trilogy, right? So like, at what point does like the Star Wars universe become too much, and like, how many times does it take for like the reputation to be tarnished to the point where it's not as meaningful? Like, will you always as eagerly digest like the next newest Star Wars thing, or do you think there's going to be a point where it's like, I'm tired of it?
Well, I mean, speaking for myself, I would say that like I was already not as enthused about like Solo after watching the movies that came out right before it. And then The Mandalorian came out, and like that kind of like revitalized a lot of that stuff because The Mandalorian is just incredible. And like I feel like as long as they're batting 500, then like fans are still gonna see it, and like no matter what, they're gonna make money on all that stuff. Which like they have to. They paid $4 billion to George Lucas for the Star Wars title, so they need to keep pumping out shows to like basically make back that investment in the first place. I think they're just gonna keep pumping out money until it's not profitable anymore.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the timeline of everything. Like if they do it right and it's, this series is for, if you're doing too many at the exact same time, then yeah, you're going to end up muddying the waters too much. But if they do it the right way, where it's like, okay, for this 6 months, we're going to show this series, and then the next 6 months. So like one example that's kind of done that recently is The Walking Dead, where there's actually, it's not just The Walking Dead now. Now it's Fear the Walking Dead. There's like 4 or 5 different ones, but they never play at the same time. They always like, okay, this one's done. And so you have nothing else to watch. Oh, you don't want to wait for that long. Okay, now go watch this other series that's still kind of built around the same universe. And if they do it that way, then I could see it still continuing to sustain, but they've got to keep people engaged. Because I mean, for me, I was skeptical of Han Solo, or of Solo, and I watched it and I loved it because it was just a little bit different. And I know Bald's, I can see his wheel spinning. I know he doesn't like that. I loved it. I thought it was great. Mandalorian, I thought was even better, but I was even more skeptical of that because it's the first like truly, like series that was live, other than like the series. Animated is very different, right? But you could see that taking off of a certain culture, but to see The Mandalorian take off the way it did with all kinds of people, I think that was pretty awesome. So if they can do it like that and they can continue to do that, yeah, I'm all in for it. But it's a matter of, can they keep everybody else engaged with that process? And if they keep it on Disney Plus, that'll help. Honestly, that's going to help Disney Plus. It's going to help like the whole genre. If they move theaters too much, it's going to have a hard time.
A couple messages from the Banter faithful. Sophia is in the chat. She is joining us in the chat until she is able to join via Zoom. She is another person who we have enlisted to be a guest. She has extensive knowledge on Star Wars and strong opinions as well. She says she's excited for the book of Boba Fett, for sure. could not agree more with that. I think we both are. Brock, I don't know your thoughts on Boba Fett.
I mean, he's a cool bounty hunter, so I mean, that would be good.
All right, so there you go. Also from Jimmy, this is not in the chat. This is a private thought, but he could have just dropped this in the chat. We would have brought it up eventually. He said, notice all the spin-offs for Star Wars are taking place after 6 and before 7. They don't want anything going into 7, 8, 9. So yeah, that kind of speaks to like they know the quality of that trilogy was rough, because another point where like the shows are there for a reason, because there's so much stuff in 7, 8, 9 that makes no sense because of the director switching and the script changing and all this stuff. So that's not a coherent trilogy. The story doesn't really make sense. But like the reason that the series are in there, you can see in The Mandalorian, they go in and they fill in plot holes during those shows to make the movies make more sense.
Yep.
So like maybe that's why they're putting all those shows there in that timeline in the Star Wars universe, just to like jam that in, try to fix as many mistakes as they can.
Well, and maybe that's what they'll eventually do. Maybe they will have some of those series that'll happen so that they can bring out a 10, 11, 12, right? And so let's fill out some of the plot holes in the middle too to get to that point. But that makes complete sense to me. And we talked a little bit about that briefly in terms of some of the plot holes in 7, 8, 9 and how it's a little bit silly. So one of the things that we brought up in our prior to coming on live was how similar A New Hope, which is the first Star Wars that was made, and Force Awakens, how similar they actually were, but with a few little tweaks. It was almost lazy writing that we saw from it. Like
I don't know why you keep saying almost.
It was lazy writing. No, it was
lazy writing.
Absolutely. Like, so, I mean, it's a very similar plot line. Like you've got this guy that's in a mask, dark figure, dark side kind of thing. So Darth Vader and Kylo Ren. And then they're both looking for a robot or a droid, right? Not a robot. Come on. They're both looking for a droid that has a secret message on it or a secret location. Then towards the, you get towards the end and Kylo Ren kills his father. He's the bad guy. So it's the reverse almost of how Luke confronts his father and Darth Vader. And it's just like all these things. They have a Death Star, but now it's like Mega Death Star instead of just being a Death Star. So it's just like all the things in The Force Awakens, the newest, number 7, it's just like rehashing things that already had happened in A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, kind of a little bit tied in there too. So it's just super lazy, right? And they had to like go destroy this specific thing in order for the Death Star to then blow up. And so it's super lazy writing. I mean, and most people that hadn't seen it, so you can tell that 7, 8, and 9 were specifically for a new generation. And because they had to know that people that actually had seen all the other ones would be like, okay, come on.
Yeah, they had to like reignite the fan base for sure. And before we tear into the sequel trilogy too much more, I will say there are positives. The acting, I think, is better in the sequel trilogy by and large. I mean, like maybe that's just because the cinematography has come a long way, but like Adam Driver's really good actor, and he did a good job with like a rough character. Like John Boyega did really well as Finn, even though they kind of like took his character and kind of like took him from like, oh, exciting, a defective stormtrooper, that's new and original. And then all of a sudden, like his character was just nobody for the rest of the trilogy, but he did a really good job acting that, like Daisy Ridley did a really good job as Rey. They all did really well acting. And like, there's some good things that the characters have going for them. But again, that whole trilogy kind of just fumbled a lot of the potential they had.
Oh, definitely. And hopefully that shifts over. So one of the things in the comments that Sophie had mentioned is if George Lucas was in charge of the sequels, they had potential. And It's probably true. I mean, they started to take over to get. That's why they switched over to having J.J. Abrams doing a lot more work on that front. Is like, let's engage a new population of people to get excited about Star Wars series, and that new population is also the ones that are most likely to have Disney Plus. Be excited about that, excited about it, all that kind of stuff. But you're blowing up again. You got somebody
I
else.
am. I gotta see it. I gotta make sure it's not relevant to the show. Could be producer notes. Oh, there we go. More people watching. If you guys are watching and you want to keep dropping comments, keep dropping comments.
Ooh, so Jeremy Craven says, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Wow. That's strong stuff right there.
It is very strong. I'm curious to know why. So put that in the comments, and I'm curious to know where that comes from.
That is a kind of a meme of a quote right there, but like it hit me right in the moment when I first saw episode 3. And like since I've seen it, when he's saying that, it makes sense. It's a meme of a line, but I think it works in the moment.
I haven't seen it. I'd have to see it to check it out.
You don't know the line? You don't know the line I'm talking about right now?
No, I don't. I'm lost. You enlighten me.
That is in the midst of the battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar. And Obi-Wan
He does say that. That's right.
Sith are
now
evil.
I remember. Yeah,
Right.
to me, because from his perspective, yeah, when they're fighting, that's right. And that's because it allows people to die, or it's selfish and doesn't. Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
So let's cut prequel Anakin a break here. He gets made fun of a lot, at least Hayden Christensen does. But let's give the character a break, because like this is a guy who clearly was like wavering, right? And they were like, this guy could go to the dark side. This guy's got problems, There are multiple scenes in the movie where he sits down with Yoda and says, like, I'm having these dreams, man. Like, I need help. Like, what's going on? Yoda's just like, let go of all that crap. That's basically what he gives him. He's just like, let it go. And then he leaves still upset. Like, yeah. And then you have him like having like these talks with Obi-Wan, and he's just like, oh, come on, like, let go of your hate. You're always so wild. And it's just like, dude, he's asked for help from like Jedi Masters and the Jedi Council. They're not giving him anything. So it's like, can you really blame the guy when like his whole life goes haywire? He's been asking for help this whole time and hasn't been getting it.
You're letting your degree get in the way of the series right now.
Am I?
To be honest, I think I agree with Jack on that a lot. Like, now that you pointed out, he does beg for help, but nobody really helps him. And he just, what's a man do?
Exactly.
So what was he? Do you think if he had been caught at a different time, he was essentially caught by the dark side first, essentially, right? In regards to that, when he was struggling with things, that was the one that seemed more enticing, that allowed him to open his feelings up, that allowed him to feel the way he wanted to feel instead of suppressing it for him. And so then that's kind of where you could see it being a little bit evil, is like, I'm being oppressed and being suppressed. I can't be myself. I have to be, I have to follow this way. I have to feel this way. I can't just feel what I feel, and it's not normal, right? Everybody just tells me it's not normal and to suppress it. And so, he does that long enough and then kind of lets loose. That's kind of what you're hearing from Yoda too, a little bit, which is interesting to think that with Yoda, because everybody thinks of Yoda as like this grand teacher, this very philosophical being that has all the right answers, but in that case, maybe not.
Well, I think that I don't even know if he would have turned to the dark side if like one big event that people think is just him being whiny in the movie, but you like kind of nerd out a little more and like see the subtext. So like Zach's not going to care about this at all, right? But so when you get the rank of master in the Jedi Order, you have access to like a library of like knowledge and abilities and force things and history that no one else has access to. So when they say, okay, you're on the council, but you're not a master. Well, the whole reason he wanted to be a master was so he could have access to the forbidden section of the Jedi Order, so he could look for a way to save his wife from dying. So he could look up all those Force abilities. They said, "Oh, you're on the council, but you're not a master." So it's like, okay, well, I need to find a way to stop my wife from dying, and how does he do that?
So tying that to something else in real life would be kind of like really cheating in anything, right? Plagiarism or taking steroids, right? So athletes taking steroids, where yeah, huge.
That was impressive.
Yeah, he's been working out. He smashed this old guy on a run yesterday morning. So I was hacking up a lung and he was just talking away. A whole different story. But so it's kind of the same concept, right? And so did any of you guys watch the Lance Armstrong, like the document, the 30 for 30 thing? Or did you watch like any of the documentaries that were made on it? There was one that was like what's it called? A bio. So it was like a theatrical version of what happened with him and how he was like on the verge of winning, and kept getting beat by like these major Europeans, even though he was training his butt off, had the mentality, had everything together. And he was just felt like he was beating his head against the wall and had to come up with a way to win. And he kind of went to the dark side and decided to meet with Dr. Ferrari and take steroids and EPO and everything else so that he could push himself over the edge to get what he needed. Right. So it's kind of the same concept. You tie that together with what Anakin was feeling is like, I'm trying to do all the right things. I'm trying to get in so that I can get to my goal. I can save my wife. I'm not getting the help I need. So I'm going to go over here because they're promising me that they can teach me how to do it right now. And so it's like an instant gratification. Like I need it right now. This is going to happen soon. And I'm going to go to the dark side to make that happen. So that's how I'm tying it together with sports. And you see a lot of people do that. It's not just with sports, it's with like business. People will cheat their way to the top because it's the quick way to get there instead of taking their time and doing it the right way or the quote unquote right way.
Bottom line is he's a doer. He's not going to wait around.
He's an emotional guy. He's an emotional being, man.
So we got another question in the chat here, and that takes us back to the sequels. Jeremy Craven, why was Holdo the first to hyperspeed into another ship? And Zach, that's from the movie you saw. I don't know if you remember that.
I do not.
One of the most visually appealing scenes, probably, where she goes light speed into Snoke's ship and then takes out a whole fleet of like Star Destroyers and stuff. Well, she was the first because it doesn't make sense at all. Like when they wrote that into the movie, it just like it made so little sense that like no one had ever done that before. That like they literally in the next movie, one of their first options when they find out like, oh, Palpatine's back, we're up against 1 million Star Destroyers. One of the guys in the crowd says we should pull the Holdo maneuver, and then someone goes, that's a 1 in a million shot. So in the next movie, they basically discredit as like, that's nonsense, like we're just lucky that worked once, which brings you to the funny conclusion of like, okay, if it's 1 in a million, then she turned around that ship thinking, this is 1 in a million. So what if she missed, like, and just like left,
Yeah, but they do that a lot throughout the series where they say things are like 1 in a million or that's going to be an impossible shot. It was like, when they took down the Death Star and like, oh, that's a 1 in a million shot. Like it's going to be an impossible shot. He's like, oh yeah, I shoot, what do you say? Womp rats all the time back home with my speeder. And you're like, okay, well, that's still a 1 in a million shot. And also on that front, like doing things that have never been done before is kind of also another thing that seems to happen. Every movie, something new comes out in terms of the Force, right? So like Luke doing what do they call it? The Ghost Force or whatever, where he basically willed himself or whatever across the universe to get, which is, that one's probably the most impressive to me outside of any of the other force powers, to be honest with you. Like bringing somebody back to life is one thing, but that to be able to project himself however far away he was, I mean, thousands of light years away onto this space, and to actually interact with things in nature in that environment, that just blows my mind.
So great time for us to bring up what we think our favorite force powers are, and we'll kind of work our way through our guests here. What do you think, gentlemen?
Jack, we'll let you go first. I gotta think on this.
All right,
I'm gonna bring
Brock,
on.
I think I know what yours would be. So
I'm gonna bring on another guest here. So Sophia is popping on, and then she can jump in on the show. So we'll allow her into the show, and then she can give her input also. So, but I'm curious to see if you want to ask that question again, because she may have missed it unless I guess she was watching it live. So we'll see if she able to pop back on here relatively quickly.
I will very quickly butt in with my favorite force power, just as the Force Ghost. Like Coach Moss said, it's pretty sick, and I don't really know any other ones, so
there's so many good ones. There's lots of like awesome stuff that happens. Like I said, the healing powers, and the lightning stuff is cool and all that, whatever. But levitation, all those types of things are pretty neat. But I think that's still my favorite. Like it still just blows my mind that he's just like able to project himself that far. Or even like when they're quote unquote dead, and like Yoda started a fire, and you're like, but you're dead. Like how
he brought down a lightning bolt from space.
Right?
That was awesome.
From space, and he's dead. How does he do that? It just blows your mind.
Sophia, welcome to the party. We're talking about our favorite force powers. So I know we're kind of jumping right at you, but what do you think? What's your favorite force power?
Oh my goodness. Okay, healing is definitely one of them. I agree with you. It's just tough. It's hard to choose between all of them. I kind of just want to use all of them.
The force as a whole is your favorite.
Force healing, super useful. I'll give you that. Jack McGinnis, they do not use force run anywhere else in the movies besides Phantom Menace. You're correct on that.
In what?
At the very beginning of Phantom Menace is the only time force run is ever used. But it's used very often in video games, and I think in the shows as well at some point. But
I forgot about video games. We didn't really touch on that much, but I'd only played a little bit because I'm old.
So pinball's not a video game, just so you know.
old.
Pinball is a video game. Well, is it? Well, you can get pinball on your computer.
A lot of rationalizing going on over there.
It's space bar.
There's an actual metal ball in the game. I don't know if it's a video game.
Yeah, but there's lights and.
But there's no screen.
Brock, I thought that off the bat you would just say force choke immediately.
Okay, you got me.
I've heard you wish for force choke in the past.
I was there. You said it, so yeah.
That's definitely going to give him a Sith taint.
Look, if anyone was willing to go to any lengths, it would be Brock.
Wait, what did you say?
Like any lengths to be successful, Brock would turn to the dark side in a second.
I can absolutely, yeah.
He's a doer, like you said earlier, Jack. Much like Anakin, he's a doer.
He's a doer.
Gets it done.
Okay, with that in mind, please don't take any steroids. We just had that conversation.
Am I allowed to start a topic?
Jack hasn't
Yeah.
given us.
Oh, I'm interested. Yes.
Bring it.
Well, it's not that exciting or as in depth as some of the things you guys have talked about, but I'm just curious to everybody's favorite lightsaber battle in all the Star Wars movies.
Ooh.
Enter the Sith, probably.
Yeah. I mean, that's
It's the classic, like, Annie Obi fight. It's so iconic.
I can't argue with that. Like I that's probably my favorite one. I don't think you can top it, to be honest with you. I think Sophia's got it.
So quotable.
Which one?
When he starts saying, "I brought peace, justice," like you have to like say it with him, honestly. Like,
That's true. It's the most emotional one in my opinion, for sure.
I think it's still fun, and I wanted to see more out of when, like, I wanted to see more out of Yoda. Like, I wanted to see more of the lightsaber battles out of Yoda, and you saw a little. Just, gosh, you got that little taste in Revenge of the Sith, and you just like wanted so badly for that one to just continue, and then he, ran off, but I felt like that one would have been a lot more. Like they could have just extended that one out more. Gosh, you could have done like a 20-minute whole set of them just fighting a lightsaber battle. It would have been awesome and epic, and they could have used more with it. But
so I guess to answer the question, first of all, Brock, I'm going to go with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul in episode 1. That's the best. Like Darth Maul, excellent villain, double-sided lightsaber, iconic. When it first happened, everyone freaked out, like you just can't beat that. The most like truly intimidating bad guy, because like Darth Vader until Rogue One, you never actually got to see him be intimidating with a lightsaber. He's kind of like slow old guy, and then Obi-Wan, slow old guy, and then like Palpatine, slow old guy, Dooku, not that slow, but still an old guy. So to your point about Yoda, like if we somehow got like a Yoda versus like Anakin, like rapid fire, like that choreography, instead of like having a 70-year-old actor try to fight CGI Yoda, we could have gotten something crazy. That would have been wild. Which, who knows?
maybe we'll see something like that.
Now. Never know.
Yeah, maybe when they do Obi-Wan, that will come up, because both of those, I'm curious to see if they tie into that together. But I think Yoda is basically just gone for all that time. Like I think he just gets exiled, and he exiles himself or whatever. He's just gone. Like I'm curious to know if there's anything that happens during that time frame where he's there on the, what's the name of the planet that he's on?
He's in the Dagobah system. They don't necessarily say the planet, but
Dagobah system. Right, he's in the Dagobah system on that swamp island or whatever. So like I'd be curious to know if there's anything actually that happened during that time frame that he's there before he meets Luke, because that's a long time for him to just sort of be there in exile by himself. But so I'm sort of curious about that piece. But yeah, it would be a lot more fun. And Darth Maul, I do want to see. I hope they bring Darth Maul back, like, because they gave that little glimpse at the end of Solo, and you're like, ooh, what's this all about? And then it made you think that there was going to be either another movie or a series that tied that whole thing together. And I would love to see that. I would love to see some sort of piece with Darth Maul coming back.
Which in itself, weird way to end Solo. Like, I don't think it made the ending of Solo better. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, it was a little strange. And part of that, like with Darth Maul, like I said, I would have loved to see him, even just in that movie, make a bigger presence to it. But
so Jack McGinnis says Palpatine's spinning dive is a top 5. So that would be when he's confronted by Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, and they try to arrest him because they find out he's Sith Lord. He does that spinny thing, and he's like growling and stuff. It's a decent battle.
Good move.
So, Sophia, why don't you talk about your favorite film and bring us through that?
Okay. Well, I have favorites. I don't know if I have already told you guys I can't choose like a favorite. All of them are just so amazing in their own ways. I can't. Okay. So from 4, 5, and 6, 6 is my favorite. From 1, 2, and 3, I always have a hard time choosing between Attack of Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And then out of 7, 8, and 9, I would have to say Rise of the Skywalker, because I think they really bring it home when all the Force ghosts are helping Rey. And I kind of think a cool twist for that would have been if they actually show like the Force ghosts like helping her, not just their voices, but like actually show them behind her as she's battling Palpatine. So
That's a good call. I like that. I like that adjustment to it. I think that would bring forth quite a bit. That'd be pretty cool. It almost like they have their own like fan base there, like supporting. That'd be pretty cool.
Right. I thought it would just bring it home.
Yeah,
Hey, that would be awesome to see like Ahsoka Tano and like Anakin Skywalker right next to
Definitely.
her. Like, oh man.
they have that. They end up having like this whole stadium full of like Force ghosts.
It'd be like a rap battle, but through the Force.
Yeah.
Now you know that Family Guy is going to do that. We're going to have a rap battle with the Force because they obviously they watch this show. Doesn't everybody? Right? We have a lot of people comment, so that's good, I guess.
Honestly, the first live show is going much smoother than I thought it would.
It's because we practiced and had a script.
Not that I didn't have faith in us and our very small producing team, but wow, going off without a hitch.
I would agree with her line of movies too. I mean, I'm pretty well close to that. You know, my favorite. We already talked about my favorite was Return of the Jedi, and so that kind of fits into that. But and you're pretty close to where I had. If I had to pick from each of the three series, that'd be pretty close, I think, to what I would have had to.
I would definitely.
Yeah. I just think Attack of the Clones gets too much slander.
I like Attack of the Clones a lot. I really like the.
But you go ahead. You go ahead. I already spoke. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I really like the lightsaber fight in that one with Yoda, Count Dooku, Anakin, and Obi-Wan. I think that's a pretty good one. And then like the battle scene with like the I don't know the name of the creatures, but like the spider thing and then the wolf and I think that's pretty dope scene. And then all the clones and Jedis come in off their little spaceship thing. Yeah.
So, a few things about that battle. Well, some fun facts for the audience here. The guy who plays Count Dooku, someone correct me if I'm wrong, his name is like Christopher Lee or something. But that guy was actually like a sword master in real life. So they didn't have to do much teaching of choreography for him. He was just like already knew what he was doing. So what they did in the movie, because he was pretty old, so he couldn't really move that fast, all the upper body stuff is actually him, and all the lower body stuff is like a double, kind of. So they kind of like merged the parts where like he couldn't move his lower body fast enough with like a double, but he's doing all the moves himself. Like he's an actual sword master in real life. Like I'm pretty sure like Game of Thrones style gives me like that Sir Barristan kind of vibe in real life for Game of Thrones people.
That's awesome. Yeah, I am a Game of Thrones person, so I got that reference. I don't really get all your references.
I've understood all night, Jack.
What'd you just say?
That was the first reference I got all night.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
I feel like I'm part of it now.
I brought it all together.
Yeah, full circle.
Another fun fact. So that battle at Geonosis, I believe only 14 Jedi survived or something. And like they had hundreds, right, when they like showed up. The reason that so many died, like the theory goes, is that this is the first time that the Jedi have been sprung into like an active war in like thousands of years. Like they've just been peacekeepers this whole time. So like really no one in the Jedi Order is experienced in this. So Mace Windu's just like, all right, let's get 100 Jedi and let's make it happen. Let's arrest Dooku. So then they just dropped in there and then thought it was going to go smoothly. And then all of a sudden, like if you watch, you see there's a bunch of Padawans out there with like Padawan braids and stuff. All of them toast.
Oh, I didn't know that. You must have watched a fan theory YouTube thing, didn't you?
A fan theory thing?
You did your research.
What do you think I do? The thing is, the sad part is I didn't even do research for the show specifically. I just have amassed this knowledge over the past couple of years that it's gotten bad.
So this might be the closest thing to, you know how we say we're experts in exactly nothing? This might be the closest thing to something for you.
That's true. You know what? No doubt. I told you I wore the hat for a reason.
No doubt.
Nice. Jack McGinnis says, it's okay so many died because they have younglings training at the temple.
And then Anakin killed them all, though.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh,
That's a good one.
that's rough. That's rough.
Watching that scene in theaters as a kid was tough.
So let's talk about that. This little guy. So he was there, right? He was one of them that was there training. And so then the theory behind that now is that he was a child of Yoda. He was an offspring of Yoda. That's the most recent fan theory that I've heard. I had that mindset to begin with, but when they started to talk about he was in the temple, his age, all these things, there was another. I don't remember what's the name of their species. Did they ever say what the name of the species is? That
There is no official name now.
So there was another female of that species that was at the temple at the same time frame.
Well, we don't know that. She's only in episode 1.
Right.
Which, oh, you're right. That would have been when he was around.
But the time frame works out,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
that would make Grogu the offspring of Yoda.
Gross.
Yeah. But then you can see that like that particular species, I think that's been the argument too. That particular species is so strong in the Force. Like they just have natural like connection to the Force. And so you can see that with very, very little training, all that Grogu was able to do in The Mandalorian seems to make a lot more sense now. I think everybody, when they saw it, it was like, oh, baby Yoda, and whatever. And because a lot of people didn't know the timeline of how it all worked out. But I find that like really intriguing, really interesting. And I'm curious to see if they continue to carry that forward through The Mandalorian, or if they like create a whole nother, because of how popular this was, if they try to create a whole nother show based around not the origin story, but maybe after kind of what we just saw, where Luke comes in and takes more.
Well, you have to wonder in The Last Jedi, you get that flashback to Luke and Kylo Ren at Luke's temple, right? Where like Luke maybe tries to kill Kylo in his sleep, and then Kylo destroys the whole temple and like takes the disciples, right? So now that we've seen a Mandalorian, Luke takes Grogu with him to that Jedi temple.
Mm-hmm.
Grogu will, in my mind, would have been there when Kylo Ren destroyed everything. So
Yeah.
we got to see the Kylo Ren versus Grogu battle that happens in that movie. That's the movie we need.
I love it. I'm all on board for that. I think that'd be awesome. The other part is, could he have taken him back to where Yoda died, and maybe he spent some time there and left him there? I mean, because the whole idea was to take him away to keep him safe, and Yoda felt like that was the best place for him because nobody would find him there. And so maybe that was a thought process. I'll take him back to where I was trained and train him and provide a setting for him and all those kinds of things. That's a very strong possibility too that I have thought about a little bit recently.
That would be awesome to see. Sophia, I'm pretty sure you've told me in the past that you are you like a lot of the things in the sequel trilogy, right?
Yeah, so the thing is, I love, like I was saying, the potential. I know that their acting is really improved. It's just the plot holes in like the writing and everything that kind of like, it just really like, it just makes me angry because of the potential. Like I really like their battles, but they just don't they're not on par with the prequels ever. Like the battles don't really get to that point, and it's kind of like frustrating because I know that it has the potential. So, but I do really like, I like all the movies, obviously, like just differently. I don't hate the sequels. I don't hate the prequels. Like none of that business. So
She doesn't like to stir up any trouble. She just want to stick on the fence.
I know this podcast is about trouble, plain and simple.
I know. I know. I just, it's tough. I mean, I have some like complaints about the prequels, like regards to like the acting. Like I think that Anakin is just really awkward sometimes. Like I know he's like younger, but like I think the part that always makes me laugh is when he talks about how he hates sand. And I'm like, what is this? It's just funny to me.
So in Attack of the Clones, that brings me back for a second. All right, I'll rewind to that. But when you bring up that part, the whole love sequence with him and Padme is like he's being creepy. He's like kind of staring at her like through his eyebrows, all weird, like, and she's
I
just
always
kind of
think
like,
that's so weird.
yeah, and she literally says to him like, "Don't look at me like that," and he does it harder and goes, "Why not?" And like, dude, that's creepy. And then he goes and he kills a bunch of Tusken Raiders. He tells her, he's like, "Hey, I just killed a bunch of women and children." And she's just like, "That's all right. Like, you're human." And then like
Okay.
for some
Women and
reason, like
children.
she hated him. Like she was like creeped out, creeped out, creeped out. I killed women and children. She's like, "I love you."
Yeah, it's just like a quick turn all of a sudden. I'm like, what?
Look, I'm not an expert on women, but I'm pretty sure that's not realistic.
So you know
I
how we
promise
talk-
you it's not.
You know how we talked about, like you're an expert and you're getting to be more of an expert in Star Wars, and then you just said you're not an expert in women. So like Star Wars, that would be my comment for you. Yeah.
At least I got my priorities straight.
It's true. It's true. Take care of that first. Dude, get the Star Wars thing figured out, and then that's you can use it as pickup lines. It's not how it works either. It's not going to work out so well for you. Could be wrong. My daughter loves Star Wars. Maybe when she gets older, you'll have a son, and you'll teach him all about Star Wars. And Caitlin, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, not my plan to have children. At this point. Not a huge fan of kids. Brock and Zach can tell you that.
So, what have we learned about you then recently through watching this show? You're not a fan of kids or dogs.
Right.
What do you like, Jack?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Well,
This is the way. Thank you, Jeremy. Yes,
the way.
I agree. All right, listen, I think I get a lot of unfair criticism on the dogs thing, but that has nothing to do with Star Wars. All right. Notice no one has a pet in Star Wars, right? They would just get in the way if there were in any of those battles. But if there were like dog people in Star Wars, they would be in the middle of the battlefield like, "Oh, sorry, he's friendly. It's okay."
No, you don't.
He's friendly. That's great.
I just gotta throw that out.
Jack, you said this podcast is all about trouble. I have a question to ask. This is just me being super like cynical about and like judgy about the movie, but so like it sounds like the Force in it of itself is a plot hole. Just the fact that like, oh, see, they're getting ready. Again, I'm coming as an outsider, and like I might sound like a plebe. I don't know, but it seems like they could just write in whatever. Like they could just be like the Force. Now they can breathe underwater, and like then you guys would be like, oh yeah, that's true. That's the Force. Just again, I don't know if that's me coming off as like ignorant because I don't know anything about Star Wars. But
I have thoughts on this.
Who wants to take
Someone else want to jump in, and I will save my thoughts.
Sophia wants to take this. Go.
Well, I just want to start by saying, obviously, they have to go through extensive training to master all parts of having the Force. I understand, like, from the outside, but that's just like a general statement. I'll let Jack take the floor since he actually has a lot, I'm sure.
Well, actually, I wasn't even gonna think of that part, but like that was a great response. Yeah, suck it, Zach. They trained for that. No, my first thought is like there are Force abilities I'm not a fan of, for sure. Like Kylo does like the bullet freezing thing, and I'm like, when he did that in Episode 7, where he just froze a bullet, I was like, really, like, I don't know if that was a necessary one. There are a couple more, I guess. Like, he just like in that same episode, he like tortures them with the Force. Like, what, we don't know what he's doing. It's like a Harry Potter, like that one curse thing.
I got you.
What is that called?
Yep.
Cruciatus.
Yeah, Cruciatus curse.
Look, you keep adding things, Zach. Good job. You know things about some stuff.
I don't know, Nick. What do you think?
So I think so most of the Force seems to be based around like telepathy, telekinetic type stuff. I mean, if you really think about it, look, a lot of the powers are telepathic or telekinetic type stuff. So levitating things, moving matter, stopping matter. I think reanimating things like that. And so they're all tied to those, telepathic type things that they're doing. There's not, other than, I think the only thing that I can think of, because even with the mind tricks and all that kind of stuff, again, it's still telepathic, it's still mental. And so it comes from that piece. But I think the only thing that is a little bit outside of that, I would say, is just the lightning bolt thing, right? That was the only one that seems that it doesn't quite fit into everything else. Like if in terms of like telepathy and all that kind of stuff. But that's the only one that I'm kind of confused about, and I don't quite understand where that comes from. I think that's just like an energy source from the Force. But now, if you guys, you may or may not remember this, is old. There were a couple of movies that were out back in the 90s. One was called Powder, and one was called Phenomenon. And in both of those movies, these two people were given powers or had powers that were based around telepathy that also included electricity. So in the movie Powder, it's this kid that has he can basically take down power from lightning, like static electricity type stuff. So it's the same, he does that. And then in the movie Phenomenon has, what's his name? John Travolta is in that movie, and he like sees some flash of light, and then he's able to like have telepathic powers, and he's really, really smart. And then he's able to like control things with his mind. And that includes electricity, which comes from static electricity. So I guess that's the only way you can kind of tie that in. But I think most of it, if you really think about it, you look at all the Force powers and all the things that actually happen, it's all built around telepathy and telekinetics, different variations of it.
And like, it's hard to like brag on Force Lightning too much because that's one of the OG Force abilities. So like that one kind of was just like part of the original bit. So like maybe it doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's always been there.
But it's and each of the powers seem to be evolutionary. And so that's kind of to Sophia's point, is if you look at whenever people, their first thing that they show is that they're able to levitate something, right? Whether it's a rock, themselves, grabbing a lightsaber, whatever it is, the first thing that they show is they learn that, how to levitate something. And then that evolves into
that in The Mandalorian too.
Mm-hmm. I think it's either that or it's the other piece that comes into that was the mind tricks. So a little bit of the mind tricks too, because isn't that actually Rey's first thing that she does? Is the first thing she does the mind trick?
Yeah, it is. Like
When
that's
she's trying to
how she
break
gets
out.
that's how she gets out of like the torture thing in Kylo Ren's ship.
Mm-hmm. So that's probably, those two things are the most simple, basic things, and then it just expands from there, and they get a little bit more complicated. But so that, I hope that helps.
So Jack McGinnis brings up a point to add to this argument, Zach. Talk about the lightsaber transfer in Rise of Skywalker. So Zach, in Rise of Skywalker, Rey is somewhere, Kylo Ren is somewhere, and then like he has no weapon because he threw his into the ocean earlier and so he has no weapon. He's surrounded by the Knights of Ren, and then she puts her hand behind her head with a lightsaber, and then it's like like a magic trick, and then Kylo Ren just pulls it out from behind his head, and a completely different, like, the Force teleported the lightsaber now, and it's like, what? Like,
It
yeah,
seems
no,
like again, like it comes back to like lazy writing, especially the way what I've heard tonight. Like the sequels, it seems to be a large issue there. But so yeah, again, I can't really speak on it, but that's my issue with the whole, like, I guess you would call it like a soft magic system if we wanted to, like the Force. But yeah, it raises questions.
I think like soft magic systems are great in terms of like Lord of the Rings, great
Yeah.
soft magic system, right? The Force is very, like, it's explained a little too much for me to consider it soft, though.
You're the expert, so we'll.
That's my opinion. I don't know what anyone else thinks.
So, Jack, you might have a little bit more knowledge on this, and I know the real basics of it, but how lightsabers are chosen, the gems, like, are the stones, if you don't want to talk about that.
Ooh.
You know how that.
Real quick, I'll go through this comment here. Jeremy says, "What is your favorite scene and why is it Vader at the end of Rogue One?" Big fan of that. I love Rogue One a lot.
Favorite scene at the end? It just in any of the movies?
Well, I mean, there's clearly a right answer.
Well, that one's wrong, but okay. That's not the favorite. I mean, you can't go. You can't say. You got to think about the truly iconic scenes that come about, and I think you have to go back to the originals in order to get to that. Like the Luke, I am your father piece is like, I can't say no to that. But also with that, I also can't say no to, the lightsaber battle. Like I think the battle between Obi-Wan and ultimately Darth Vader, right? So that, like, and when they're both tied together, the two separate ones, those are pretty meaningful. The fact that he basically just kind of dropped his lightsaber and gave up Obi-Wan at the end, but it was all for a purpose. And so, like, I think, but I still go back to, like, I have to go back to Luke, I am your father. Like that one, just, I can't. That, or again, I'm old, so I can either go with that, or I could go with where Yoda is on his deathbed and he says, "There is another Skywalker," and then he figures it out. Like that's an epic scene where he figures it out that he has a twin sister. No, it's cool. That's mine.
Respect
The
it.
I Am Your Father scene is arguably like one of the most iconic scenes in like film history. So like you can't really like just graze over that one. So
How many times was that probably repeated?
right, like
In movies and film, just by people, like TV shows. It was so epic that they actually
Remember it in Toy Story.
they did it. Yeah, a lot of like they created a soundbox thing so people could sound like Darth Vader and say that. Like they create that, like, so that people could have that. They created apps so you can actually talk like that now because of that scene.
Sophia, favorite scene, or Brock?
Go first. I still have to think about it.
This is so it's not like an iconic scene or like a super memorable scene for most people, but my favorite scene is definitely from Solo. Like when he gets his name Solo, I thought, like, I don't know, that really stuck with me and I enjoyed it. So,
and that's your opinion.
yeah, nothing too exciting, but I love that scene. He's like, I don't have a name or whatever. So
Good for you.
yeah.
I'll tell you, it's a good scene.
Sophia?
Oh my goodness. A favorite scene. Okay, so for starters, Rogue One. Darth Vader is incredible in that. I'm glad that you can finally see his potential with like the CGI and everything. They can really show how good because he's so good and like you didn't get to see that before. In the sequels, like I was saying before, I do like the scene where she's fighting Palpatine, and I told you how I think they could spruce it up, but that is my favorite scene in the movie. I think that honestly, like it just really is. I really like from 6. I like when they're in the final battle with the Jawas. The entire end of that movie is just incredible. It's actually what helped me pick that as my favorite from the originals. So yeah.
Nice. All right, Bald, you're up.
My favorite scene, Jeremy brings up pod racing, but I'm not going to go with pod racing. That's a top 5 for me because episode 1 was my favorite when I was a kid. I'm still going to go with Obi-Wan. As soon as Qui-Gon is dead, Obi-Wan coming out of like the energy gate as soon as he goes to fight Darth Maul one-on-one. That was sick.
That is pretty epic.
So good.
So there might be better picks, but what comes into my head immediately is that.
So
I noticed that oh go ahead.
no, you're good.
No, I just remembered that I said Jawas. I meant Ewoks. I do not know why I said Jawas on accident. So like nobody corrected me and I was like, wait.
You're gonna get
I just said Jawas instead. But yeah.
you're gonna get murdered in the comments box.
I was
I'm
like,
sure
wait a
all
minute, what
kinds
did I say?
all kinds of
That's
people
what
are
live
talking.
is all about.
Yeah. making those silly mistakes.
Normally we would edit that out.
Yeah, we do a lot of fine editing. Anybody that's watched our series of shows. Do we edit? I mean,
I'm sure we have an editor somewhere.
yeah.
His name's
I
Jack.
would like to edit our show for next to no money, or no money.
Like you would be standing next to
To
nothing.
no money.
You would literally be next to no money.
We'd be happy to take you on. The other question I was going to ask, and I'm sure that everyone is going to have a hard time with this particular one. Who's your least favorite character?
There's so many. No, I'm just kidding.
Really? Really? It should not take that long, people.
Jar Jar Binks.
Well, you seem
Jar
to have
Jar-
a strong opinion.
Jar Jar Binks.
Everybody's gonna say that.
Look,
Terrible.
Jar Jar Binks was a great character until it turned out that he wasn't Snoke. That fan theory was the best fan theory. Everyone thought that Jar Jar Binks was really a Sith Lord. He was Supreme Leader Snoke, and then they all just killed Snoke and he meant nothing. And it's like, come on, like that was Jar Jar. He had just like fallen into like a turbine or something, and like
That's a bit extreme. That's conspiracy theory. That's the guys that are just the crazy whack jobs that are, yeah.
see, Darth Jar Jar. Thank you, Jeremy.
Darth Jar Jar. Wow.
Anyway,
I might take some heat for this one, but my least favorite character is probably like Kylo Ren. Not a huge fan of him as a villain. Yeah.
Wow. Why? Why not? Where did this come from?
I just didn't think he was kind of just seemed childish to me, and didn't just have like you see Darth Maul or Darth Vader, and you're just like, God, these dudes are just like these animals, and like you're scared of them, but he's not scary to me. And like watching him fight and stuff, he just seems kind of like he's not the man to me. I will say in the last movie I liked him a lot, but until then I was not a fan of his character. So.
I think he's a good character. I don't think he's one of the best or anything like that, but I think he's a good character in representation of the dark side of the Force in a different way, because he's so emotional, like about everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's rarely in control, very emotional. He's almost like Anakin was before he became Darth Vader. Like, because when Anakin becomes Darth Vader, it's a little bit more, in all the times that we see Darth Vader, it's more like reserved, controlled, has kind of control over everything. But before everything got to that point, he was way out of control emotionally. And you can see that from Kylo Ren, where like building to something, like it's almost like he's in the stage of being a teenager, where he just like has no like his hormones are all over the place. He has no idea what's going on. And he's just trying to figure it out. And so he's just super emotional. And you either go to the dark side of the force at that time or you go to the light. Right. And that's my take on Kylo Ren. That's why he's at that moment. And he's at that moment in his life where he's trying to figure out who is he. And he's a big representation of like, let your emotions go and just whatever happens or says or does comes out.
Brock, he's telling you you're wrong. Are you going to take that?
It's his opinion. I shared my opinion. I don't know. It is what it is. I mean, he's not. I guess I would expect more out of the dark side, but to be fair, I guess he up and coming. He's maybe not the man yet. And Coach made a good point with the fact that like Anakin was kind of wild and crazy and out of control, and then like you see Darth Vader and it's like, oh, totally different person. So I mean that's a very valid point, but
So
I still just didn't enjoy his presence as much as I would have liked in those movies.
McGinnis brings up, they show he's a troubled Sith apprentice with his unstable Kyber core. Yes, it is Kyber. Okay, so that referring to the crystal inside of his lightsaber,
Yeah.
that is why his lightsaber has like rugged edges rather than smooth like the other lightsabers. I guess I didn't really know the meaning before you just said that, Jack. But yeah, I guess that means he's a troubled Sith apprentice rather than like a refined one. So I don't know. No one would know that though. So like Brock, I don't think that changes what you said.
No, I did not know that. Definitely an interesting fact.
Yeah, that was a good one. I wasn't quite clear on that before either. That's interesting to know. Yeah.
If we can go on to the lightsaber topic.
Let's do it.
The meaning of color of lightsaber. So there's a bunch of different colors you don't see in the movies, but we can just say in the movies, the difference between a blue and a green lightsaber is someone who wields a blue lightsaber is someone who is whose specialty is more adept in like swordsmanship, and like they will solve problems through like being an expert duelist and their skills with a lightsaber. And then green is someone more prone to like negotiation and force powers. Hence Yoda green, and then Anakin blue. And then Obi-Wan, a lot of people might think he's the other way around, but he's actually blue because he was the best Jedi Master in the whole like canon of the show in Form 3, which is the defensive form of lightsaber combat, which is the reason why he was able to defend himself against Grievous and Darth Vader and Darth Maul, because he was like the best defensive fighter in all of Star Wars. And then Mace Windu, purple. That means that he has like a mix of light side and dark side power as he's fighting. So he's like one of the few characters who does this, but like that's proof that like the dark side isn't like bad, because Mace Windu actively used it every time he fought. He was just able to control the balance of it.
Did you know that Samuel L. Jackson actually requested a purple one? He did.
Classic.
It's true.
Yeah.
I stand out in episode 2.
I watched a like an interview he did with some British like TV show or whatever, and they were talking about like he said, yeah, I'll do it, but I have to have a purple one. He requested to have the purple lightsaber, which I thought was pretty cool. But is it the only one? The only one that's purple?
In the movies, yes. I'm not sure about extended like TV, because there's just so many TV shows that I haven't seen. Like I haven't seen Rebels, and I haven't like seen like Legends and stuff like that.
I've seen a little bit of it, but not a lot. Those are the ones that seem to sort of flurry out, or like you might get young kids that get interested in those. But like Zach's point that was earlier in the show, like, do you ever think it would get old or boring or not, keep your attention? I think those are some of them that they appeal to specific subculture or kids or whatever. And then I haven't really gotten into it Like I haven't really even gotten into I haven't seen any of the Lego ones either.
But the games are awesome.
Yeah.
Lego Star Wars games are sick.
Is that on the Atari or
I'm pretty sure it's Sega
Nintendo?
Genesis now.
Sega Genesis? I had one of those. I have a PlayStation 3 in a box.
Do you?
Yeah, it's in a box.
Oh.
I've been known to dabble in some Grand Theft Auto and and a little bit in NCAA football before it went away. I still have 2010 something. So yeah, I dabble. Assassin's Creed was my gig, man. Played a lot of that. Like Assassin's Creed. Great game of history. Historical lessons from that. Good for kids.
Great for kids.
No, I wouldn't have expected that.
History. What?
I wouldn't have expected that from you.
Why?
I don't know. I don't. You don't seem like the kind of person who has time on your hands to be gaming. Like
I don't.
you hardly ever sit still. This podcast is the most you sit still in an entire day.
I know. I'm getting tired. To be honest. It's hard for me to sit still. This legitimately is probably this show. Whenever we do this show, this is the longest that I typically sit, unless I'm sleeping or something. I'm usually trying to move around and do a lot
You're
of
not
stuff.
just sitting. For those of you who don't know the inside of the old studio over there, he's not just sitting in a chair. He's sitting on an exercise ball chair.
I am. If you're not
It's not regular sitting. That's how an old man sits.
That's advanced sitting.
yeah.
Why am I called Grandpa? I have a chair.
I have to. So I have this here, and then I have one in my office at work too. It's awesome. Helped my back. Had some back issues, and now I'm feeling much better. I had some back issues. Now I got some front issues I got to get taken care of here.
Oh my God.
Too much holiday eating.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
I have one final question. Just Brock and I are gonna venture into this Star Wars journey together. So, like, how are you supposed to watch it? Do you go 1 through in order, or do you start with the way they were made, like released?
Go ahead, Sophia.
Okay, so I originally watched it 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. But I wouldn't be opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like if you want to go like that, I feel like that's reasonable for sure.
I think most purists will say 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. I guess like if you watched it, it wouldn't necessarily change much except like your perspective on how the characters are like written, probably.
I would say for new people, honestly, starting 1, 2, 3, just from the beginning probably makes the most sense. I always found it interesting when they came out many years ago. They came out in the 70s, so I'm not that old. But when they came out, I was like, why is it episode 4? Why is it not episode 1? Why are they doing episode 4? That's so strange. So I always thought that was a little bit odd that they did that in the first place. That's the way that I would watch it because that's what I saw first. But I think anybody that's new coming to it, seeing that character development all the way through from 1 and the storyline develop from 1, I think that's the best route to go. And then if you really want to get into it and do it the right way, there's some websites you can look at too, just because it is hard to kind of keep track of, is watch the other ones. So watch Solo, watch Rogue One, watch those tied into it as well.
Watch the Christmas special.
Watch the Christmas special. watch those tied into it so you can get the full story, right? Because if you throw Rogue One in there, that can really help tie a lot of it together where you can actually see how they get the plans and all that. I think Rogue One's a good movie in terms of that, but I would say like if you can tie Solo and Rogue One in there and just float it on in, that'd be huge for you too.
All right.
But for a newbie,
Duly noted.
although I will say my least favorite is Phantom Menace, which is the first one. But maybe you'll think different. I don't know.
Haters gonna hate.
You would say that about somebody that I also don't like as a musician. We're not going to get into that. That's a whole nother topic.
We already had the music episode.
Nobody knows. Yep. We already had it. All right. Well, I love having guests on. Sorry we couldn't have had more time with Sophia. Maybe we'll get you on in another episode. We might have to do another Star Wars episode because I think we could even continue on and talk more and more and more.
So
But
we did.
this has been
one at
episode
200.
10. What?
We did one episode at 200 views. This is the Star Wars episode we did for 200 views. Should we set another mark for our next Star Wars episode?
You could bring Zach back on after he watches all the movies too.
Ooh, okay. So when Zach finishes the movies, maybe we bring him back on.
It could take years.
Okay, then maybe
We'll
not.
be-
that.
By then, we'll have thousands of followers. We'll have a cast of people working on the show. We might be too big time by that point. I don't know if we'll have you on.
It's true.
Right?
You know what?
Yeah.
We'll discuss a viewership number and then we'll come back and figure out when to do the next Star Wars one.
Well, thank you for joining us. This is episode 10.5. Eventually, we'll get to the explanation of why 0.5. I think we briefly touched on that at one point, but episode 10.5. Thanks for coming live on YouTube platform. We'll be up next Thursday. We haven't decided the topic yet. Do you have any idea what we're going to talk about?
Oh, we have a little thought.
Ooh. We might even have another guest next week. We tried to get someone on that has been hiding away from us for episode after episode. We might get another person on, but we have a couple of pretty good ideas coming up. Stay tuned. Thank you, everybody. Once again, this has been Banter. I'm old.
I'm bald.